Jack wasn't just a mechanic to the people of the town. He was a friend, a problem solver, and someone who could be counted on in times of need. One early morning, as the town was still waking up, a police cruiser pulled into the lot. The car was instantly recognizable. It was Officer Daniels, a fixture in the community, but something was off. Jack noticed it right away. Daniels, usually calm and collected, had a troubled expression on his face as he stepped out of the car. "Morning, Jack," Officer Daniels greeted him, his voice lacking its usual cheer. "Morning, officer. You look like you've got something on your mind," Jack replied, wiping his hands on a rag as he walked over to meet him. Daniels nodded, a sigh escaping his lips. "Yeah, there's something wrong with one of my tires. I've been hearing this strange hissing sound for the past couple of days, and it doesn't seem like a typical air leak. I figured it'd be better if you took a look." Jack, always eager to help, nodded. "Let's get that car up on the lift and see what's going on." Daniels followed Jack into the garage, his unease growing as they moved closer to the car. Jack's auto repair shop was a familiar place to him, but today the walls seemed to close in around him, amplifying the anxiety he was trying to keep at bay. Jack methodically inspected the vehicle, his experienced eyes scanning every detail. When he reached the problematic tire, he immediately noticed something unusual. The tire didn't just look uneven, it felt different. There was a subtle bulge in the rubber, almost as if something was lodged inside. "Mind if I take the tire off and have a closer look?" Jack asked, glancing up at Daniels. "Please do," Daniels replied, his voice tinged with concern. Jack got to work, removing the tire with the practiced ease of someone who had spent decades working with his hands. But as he started to inspect it more closely, the hissing sound Daniels had mentioned became audible. It wasn't coming from a typical puncture or a leaking valve, it was coming from inside the tire. Jack frowned, his curiosity piqued. He knew tires inside and out, and this was something he'd never encountered before. He decided to cut into the tire, carefully slicing through the rubber until he reached the source of the noise. What he found made his heart skip a beat. A small, intricately designed device embedded deep within the tire's structure. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before, a piece of technology that seemed out of place in the mundane setting of his auto shop. "What the hell?" Jack muttered under his breath as he carefully extracted the device. It was sleek with tiny LEDs blinking faintly as if signaling its presence to anyone who knew where to look. Daniels, who had been watching Jack closely, stepped forward. "What is that?" he asked, his voice low and tense. Jack held the device up, turning it over in his hands. "I'm not sure, but it definitely doesn't belong in a tire. I've seen all kinds of things in tires over the years, nails, screws, even the occasional rock, but nothing like this." Daniels' face grew even more serious. "This doesn't look like anything I've seen before either. We need to figure out what it is and why it was in my tire." Jack nodded in agreement. "I've got a friend who might be able to help. His name's Eddie. He's a whiz with electronics. If anyone can tell us what this thing is, it's him." Daniels didn't hesitate. "Give him a call. The sooner we know what we're dealing with, the better." Jack pulled out his phone and dialed Eddie's number. It rang a few times before Eddie picked up, his voice bright and cheerful. "Jack, long time no talk. What's up?" Eddie said, his tone friendly and relaxed. "Eddie, I've got something here that I need you to take a look at," Jack began, trying to keep his voice steady. "I found a device inside a tire, something electronic. It's strange, and I don't know what it is." There was a brief pause on the other end before Eddie responded, his voice now more serious. "Inside a tire? That's not something you hear every day. Send me some pictures and I'll see if I can figure out what it is." Jack quickly snapped a few photos of the device and sent them to Eddie. He watched as Daniels paced back and forth, his concern growing with each passing second. The silence from Eddie's end of the line stretched on, the tension in the air thickening. Finally, Eddie spoke again. "Jack, this is serious. We need to meet in person." Bring the device with you." Jack's stomach dropped at Eddie's words. "How serious are we talking?" "Serious enough that I don't want to discuss it over the phone. Can you meet me at my shop in an hour?" "I'll be there," Jack said, hanging up the phone. He turned to Daniels, his face grim. "Eddie wants us to meet him at his shop. He says this could be something big." Daniels didn't need to be told twice. "I'll follow you there." The drive to Eddie's shop was tense. Jack kept glancing in his rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone tailing them. The device, now safely tucked away in a small box on the passenger seat, seemed to radiate an ominous energy, its presence heavy in the confined space of the car. When they arrived at Eddie's electronics shop, the normally bustling storefront was eerily quiet. Eddie was waiting for them outside, his usual smile replaced with a look of concern. "Let's get inside," Eddie said, waving them in. "We need to talk." Eddie's shop was a tech lover's dream. Every inch of the walls was covered in shelves filled with gadgets, tools, and electronic components. The workbench in the center of the room was cluttered with half-finished projects, wires, and circuit boards, a testament to Eddie's passion for his craft. Jack handed Eddie the device, watching as his friend's eyes widened in surprise. "This is no ordinary gadget," Eddie murmured, turning the device over in his hands. "It's high-end, maybe even military grade. It's designed for tracking and recording, probably remotely." Daniels felt a cold knot form in his stomach. "Why would something like this be in my tire? Am I being watched?" Eddie shrugged, still examining the device. "Could be, or it could be something bigger. Whoever put this there didn't want it to be found, that's for sure. It's well hidden, and if you hadn't heard that hissing sound, you probably wouldn't have noticed it at all." Jack leaned in, his brow furrowed. "So what do we do now?" Eddie set the device down on the workbench and looked up at them. "First, I'm going to see if I can pull any data off this thing. Maybe we can trace it back to whoever made it. But we need to be careful. If this is military-grade tech, we don't want to trip any alarms." Daniels nodded. "I'll report this to my superiors. If there's someone targeting the police, we need to know who and why." Eddie got to work, carefully connecting the device to his computer. Jack and Daniels watched in silence as lines of code scrolled across the screen, the atmosphere in the room growing heavier with each passing moment. After what felt like hours, Eddie finally leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "I've managed to access some of the data, but it's encrypted. This is high-level stuff. Whoever set this up knew what they were doing." Daniels frowned. "Can you break the encryption?" Eddie nodded slowly. "I can try, but it's going to take some time. In the meantime, I'd suggest you keep this quiet. If someone's watching, we don't want to tip them off." Jack and Daniels agreed, thanking Eddie for his help before heading back to the auto shop. The drive back was just as tense as the drive there. Both men lost in their thoughts, trying to piece together the puzzle that had suddenly dropped into their lives. Back at the shop, Daniels made the call to his superiors, explaining the situation in careful detail. The response was immediate. A full investigation would be launched, and every police vehicle would be checked for similar devices. As the days turned into weeks, more devices were found, hidden in the tires of various police vehicles. Each discovery brought them closer to the truth, a shocking revelation that there was a mole within the department, working with outside forces to sabotage police operations. The investigation eventually led to the arrest of several high-ranking officials, their betrayal shaking the department to its core. The discovery of the devices had exposed a network of corruption and espionage that stretched far beyond the small town, reaching into the highest levels of law enforcement. Jack returned to his routine at the auto shop, but the events of those weeks had left a lasting impression on him. His shop, once a place of simple mechanical work, had played a crucial role in uncovering a dangerous conspiracy. Jack couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, knowing that his skills and quick thinking had helped protect his community in a way he never imagined. In the end, the tire that had rolled into Jack's shop that fateful morning carried more than just air. It carried a story of betrayal, danger, and ultimately justice. A story that would be remembered in the town for years to come. Jack, Eddie, and Officer Daniels had faced down a hidden enemy and emerged victorious, their actions ensuring that the town and the wider community would be safe from the shadows that had threatened to consume them.